Hi, everybody. I'm Mark Sheffer, the managing editor of Dice News, and welcome to this week's Hangout. Today, we're going to talk about networking. Everybody hates doing it, but it is one of the most effective ways that you can find a job. So, we're here today with two people who know a lot about networking, and they are Lynne Goldman and Susan Morris. They're both with Merit Career Development in Wayne, Pennsylvania. Lynne, Susan, thanks for joining us.
Sure.
Could you just take a minute, Lynne, and introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Lynne Goldman. I have a master's degree in organizational psychology, so I have been doing consulting and training, management training, employees, coaching, soft skills training, as sometimes people call it, for over 25 years.
Okay. Susan, how about you? Can you tell us about yourself?
Whatever she said, I do just for a little bit longer, as you might be able to tell.
All right, fair enough. We will ask no questions. Now, we're going to talk about networking today, but we're really going to focus on networking for introverts.
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean? What do people mean when they talk about introverts versus extroverts?
Well, just to step back from sort of the lay definition and how it's used, the concepts actually go back to Carl Jung, who was a contemporary of Freud in Switzerland. And he was a psychologist also in the beginning of the 20th century, and he developed these ideas. And later, a couple other people created something called the Myers-Briggs type indicator, which some people may have heard of, and I'm not going to go into and explain it here. You can find out online everything you'd want to know. But when we talk about introverts and extroverts, we're referring to a specific definition. So I think it's useful for us to take just a couple of minutes and talk about that to get those definitions more precise.
So I'll go ahead and take a stab at this whole thing called extroversion, but I'm going to do it by, paying attention to silence, because I think a lot of us folks that have a preference for extroversion talk a lot. So there's a slide up in front of you that talks about extroversion. I'm going to be quiet and let you read it.
That's unusual.
I know. What a concept. So as you can see, extroverts are very talkative. Most of our energy is going out to make acquaintances, to talk, to engage, to connect. We're sometimes seen as shooting from the hip.
No, the lip.
Oh, right. See, there you go. Many times us extroverts make verbal mistakes because there's just so much we want to share. And also, we do a lot more better thinking when we speak it rather than when we are silent and think it inside.
Right. You actually speak in order to think.
I do.
Yes.
Now, and I'm very proud of it as I overstep you again.
And I'm an introvert. And I think this is a good point to talk about when we say extrovert versus introvert. What Jung was really talking about is what's your source of energy. So, for instance, extroverts actually get their batteries charged by interacting outward with things. Now, if you're an introvert out there, you're probably going, oh my God, no. Because yeah, as an introvert, that's not the way I get my batteries charged. I can be extroverted, but it depletes my batteries a lot faster, and so I need more alone time to recharge my batteries. So you can see the difference between introverts and extroverts. We tend to think very deeply before we talk. Sometimes we don't even get to the talking part. But once again, it's about the source of energy. And you will see from the two slides that more of the American population are extroverts. So us introverts have grown up in an extroverted society that keeps telling us to speak up.
So when it comes to networking now, why are we going to focus on networking for introverts? Is there a difference in the way extroverts and introverts approach it?
I'll take that one. Okay. Thanks for that question. Yes, typically the folks that have a preference for extroversion don't have any problem in attending an event or meeting new people. In fact, they get energized, they get excited, they get enthused about the whole idea of working the room. I can't say that's true for my friend here.
No, when I think about going to, let's say, a networking event, I just imagine an evening filled with chit-chatting and making small talk, and the very idea is just really exhausting. even tedious. It's sort of like, well, just shoot me now. I don't really want to go through with this.
Whereas I see networking as fun. Look at all these people I've never met before. Look at all the opportunity I have to connect with folks and for other folks to find out about me. I just see it as great use of my time.
Well, I mean, it's like I know networking pays off, but it's how do I find it? And I think as an introvert, I've discovered ways to make it work for me. That's different than the way extroverts make it work. And I've spent a good part of my career having extroverts tell me, well, this is what you should be doing, and it's never fit really well. So I, over time, and through some help from you to actually give some tips, have figured out what works for me as an introvert when I'm faced with networking events, but opportunities where I can make a connection.
And what we also find is that a lot of times it begins with your mindset. I think we've sort of like just touched on that a little bit. My mindset about networking is very different than yours, isn't it, Lynne?
Yeah, so I have to, I mean, it's work for me. See, extroverts think of it as fun.
Yeah, definitely.
And because it's not my overall preference, I have to work at it. And that's, I think, another useful thing is talk about the extroverts versus introverts. Although we talk about it as two separate things, there's really a continuum. And all of us are someplace on that continuum, a mix of extrovert, a mix of introvert, with a preference towards the other. And when I work on the other side, in my case being an extrovert, it takes more energy, it takes more work for me. So I have to prepare myself and think about it and set my mindset up.
And when I, as an extrovert, work with introverts, my gift to them is exactly what I tried to show before, is silence. That is so hard for me to be quiet.
Yes.
You've noticed.
This isn't all about you, you know. We're not about introverts.
Oh, man.
The other thing I can't stand is when people say to me, oh, you've got to blow your own horn. I can't tell you how much that phrase just does not resonate with me as an introvert. I mean, so what am I supposed to do?
Well, I'll tell you. It's the idea when you were just talking about a continuum. When we talk about blowing your own horn, a lot of us have this misconception that that should be a sales job. And believe me, nobody wants to have a monopoly on the conversation and be on the other end, listening and not getting a word in edgewise. When we talk about the idea of blowing your own horn, it's using it with discretion. It's the idea of, what am I really passionate about? What do I really care about? What do I stand for? That's going to be important for the other person to know about me.
Yeah.
I see that far different than aggressive braggadocio.
Yeah, I also think it's being clear on what value you're bringing to the table, you're bringing to the organization. And as I said a little earlier, I think networking isn't just going to events, it's finding those opportunities. So I might be in line at the cafeteria and my manager from 2 levels above me is there and says, hey, you want to sit down and have lunch. That's an opportunity to create a stronger relationship that I could use at some other point in time. So maybe I use that opportunity to ask her, where we're going, or a project that I'm working on right now, to get her thoughts about where she thinks the industry is going. Mm-hmm. Some open-ended questions. That's networking too. That's building relationships.
Because in fact, when we talk about networking, what we're really talking about is an equal exchange.
Right.
It's not all about the other person, and it's not all about me. It's really an opportunity for us to have a good conversation and a connection and getting to know each other. If it is one way, then it is a sales job. And as we said, we don't want that to be networking.
Well, and I can't do that either.
Right.
But when we're talking about networking, what kind of activities are you talking about?
Well, certainly, there's all kinds of networking opportunities. Events certainly is one of the ones, it's probably one of the ones that introverts like least. But I think the point I want to make is that as introverts, we can do all of them. We're just going to do them differently. Different use of energy, different techniques.
I think to answer Mark's question, if I could piggyback onto you,
yes,
is that we're really focusing today on the networking event where it's usually after work, it's at a hotel, it's with a professional organization, or it could be a networking event for an employee resource group that you may belong to, a career in transition group. any kind of a social gathering where people are coming together to get to know each other. Because I think that's the time when with your preference for introversion, it's the most uncomfortable.
Right, and it is work. So, I mean, I've joked with you that you actually enjoy going to these things, but I think one of the techniques that I have found that has worked for me, initially I always thought, I walk into a room for 40 people, I have to meet most of them. And that thought in and of itself exhausts me. What I have come to do is, and truly what introverts do in a large crowd, by the end of the evening, they end up having had 3 or 4 really good quality conversations. Not 10, not 15, not 20. 3, 4, 5 good quality conversations. So that's my expectation when I go to one of these kinds of things. And if I've accomplished that, I feel pretty good. And I feel good because I think I've made a good connection, not just passing cards to somebody. So that becomes my goal when I go to some event, let's say.
Mm-hmm. But we have some more tips, don't we, Lynn?
Yes. Well, the other thing, too, I have a tendency to very quickly judge people. Okay,
Really?
It's not pretty, but it's true. In the first 20, 30 seconds, does this person have something to offer me? Are they valuable? And I've had to stop myself from doing that and say to myself, this person has something that I need. Some piece of data, some piece of information. I didn't even realize it, but I have to listen closely and find that out from that person. And it's true, everybody has something that they're going to end up giving me. So that's the other thing I do too, so that I'm not making too quick of a judgment and moving on and making quality connections.
So here's another tip. For those of you that have a preference for introversion, I suggest you get to the event early.
Why?
Here's why. Thanks for asking. If you get to the event early, you then don't come into a room where people are already paired up or they're already in small groups. The room is relatively quiet. You can approach another person standing alone who may also look a little uncomfortable. Arriving early gives you more of a sense of control, and rather than you coming in and everything is all set. So that's another suggestion. Do you have another one, Lynne?
Well, the other thing is that I try and prepare some good, thoughtful questions.
Mm-hmm.
Your typical sort of networking event, people just say the ordinary stuff. So, where do you work, and what do you do, and hey, how about those Phillies, or whatever it is. Not only is it not useful, you're not getting good data or information, but it's not making you very memorable. So I might go into one of these events with 1 or 2 thoughtful, open-ended questions. So for instance, I might say, after we introduce ourselves and get through the normal stuff, and say, I'm interested in learning more about what people are doing. That's one of the reasons I came here tonight. What do you think is the most important skill that you've learned in the past year? You think that's really valuable? It surprises people. It's an intelligent question, and it makes you more memorable because they realize, oh, this isn't just the ordinary, once my card is going to connect with me later. This is somebody who is really thoughtful. And then I listen. And when you listen to people, they love it. And once again, that piece of information comes out that I'm looking for in that connection. And that works. It's much more comfortable for me as an introvert. So I have to do a little bit of work before even going in and do some preparation, which I don't think extroverts do as much. They're much more on the fly,
mm-hmm.
and the words come easily
mm-hmm.
to them. So that helps for me too.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one other thing that helps me as an extrovert is that when I go to a networking meeting, I really try hard to pause after I ask that really great question, because I want to also give the other person an opportunity to come through with a thoughtful response.
Right. Right.
Here's another suggestion that we make is that your body language also has to show that you're available and approachable during a networking event. One of the things I saw at the last networking event was that people were carrying their cell phones around instead of business cards. And it was almost like a badge of courage to not look at their cell phone. So again, leave the cell phone in your pocket, your purse, or better yet, the car. And make sure that you're making eye contact. Make sure that you are giving that person the personal regard of looking at them for 2 seconds and then looking away.
And in another way, that's another way of making yourself memorable, because so few people are really doing that. To, your phone goes off and say, no, I can get that later. That makes a really strong impression, I think, in this day and age. The other thing is, I sometimes I find it difficult to sort of break into, two people already having a conversation. It's like, how do I get into it? And the thing that's different about networking events versus normal life is if two people were standing talking to each other and I walked up to them and wanted to get into the conversation, that would probably be seen a little weird, maybe even a little creepy. But in networking events, people expect that you're there to meet people. So you can kind of go up to a couple that's the people who are talking and listen to the conversation, make eye contact with both of the people who are talking, and kind of gently move yourself into the conversation. Hi, I'm Lynne. Is it all right if I'm listening to what you said? Because actually, I've had some experience with that, and I'm wondering what your experience has been. So it's acceptable to sort of make that entree, listening first, connecting with the people via eye contact, and then allowing for a pause in the conversation where they're looking at you expecting some kind of response. And it goes pretty smoothly.
Here's another suggestion, is to find me. I am a connector. That means that I am the kind of person that loves to see how people can connect with each other at a networking event, and then I walk around and I introduce them to each other. If you can find a connector, a pal, a colleague, a friend, a trusted other, to go to this networking event, it will make your experience a whole lot easier. In fact, what we could even say is that finding a connector could be a good networking goal.
Yeah. The other thing that I'm sorry, Mark, were you going to say something?
No, I was just nodding.
Okay. We're just yapping away. I also give myself a time limit. Because this is tiring for me, and it is really work, I might say to myself, okay, 30 minutes, make a couple of good quality connections, and then check in with myself at the end of the 30 minutes and see how I'm feeling. I'm doing okay, maybe do another 15 or 20 minutes. And I think that's okay. I've gotten what I want to out of the evening, and usually it's at the end of a long day, so I'm usually tired anyway because I've been in meetings or whatever all day. It's about quality.
It sure is.
Not quantity.
Absolutely. For me as well. I want to meet the person that's going to help me do what I need to do, not, people that are not in my wheelhouse, my target market. We have one other suggestion for you, and that is the use of business cards. Some of you have business cards that have a blank on the back, so that's plenty of real estate, where if you are engaged in a conversation with a new networking colleague, take some notes on the back of that card.
Or when you exchange.
Or even better.
Right, so they give you your card, and as they're talking, I'm taking some notes. Another way to be memorable, because people just don't do that kind of listening anymore. Also, once I've done that, and then it slips into my pocket or wherever, and I look at it 3 days from now, it's like, who is this person? Where did I meet them? Oh, okay. And then if I do reconnect with them, let's say through social media, there's some stuff I can use to make that connection.
We have the last slide, which is a summary of all of these tips. If you could put up that one that says networking tips for introverts. And here you'll see a list of what we've just described. And I hope that this is helpful for you. What do you think, Lynne? Do you think if this is a good list for you?
Yeah, and I knew some of these, but in working with my friend, the extrovert, she gave me some of these as well. So take a look at these, maybe make some notes for yourself. We can also get this to you afterwards if you want. And then I have one more thing to kind of cover.
Yeah.
I said earlier that networking is not just going to some event. I think the way things are now, we've gotten a whole lot of other options. Like I said, that standing in line at the cafeteria, that's networking. The other thing is social media today. We have some real great tools at our hand, and they're perfect for introverts because I can put my resume up. I can really craft the way I want to present myself so that people are looking at me. I'm presenting myself when I don't even know I'm presenting myself. So I don't have to do, I know I still need to do the face-to-face and the hands, but this is yet another way for people to get to know me. That's not as tiring for me, but it does mean I need to put the time up front into using that social media smart, and doing it thoroughly, building good, profile or whatever, and checking on it daily or weekly, and maintaining it.
Maintaining, that's really key to an excellent networker. I found that a lot of folks that I meet at networking events is sort of the first date, and then you don't hear from them ever again, and you wonder, did they fall off the face of the earth? You can use social media as a great way to let people know what's going on with you. Have you just had something published? Have you landed a job? Have you gotten a promotion? Are you working on a really high-profile project? And I think that that's as key as that first impression is your follow-up impression. That again shows that you were listening, that you're intent on maintaining this networking relationship. Good use of social media.
Right. And once again, I don't think too often it's not all about selling. So I may use social media to seek out knowledge experts in my field and approach them and say, I see that you've done such and such, and I'm wanting to learn more about what's going on there, or can I refer people to you as somebody who knows this area? So it's about making those connections and relationships. It's not always about selling me. It's that kind of maintenance that I think a lot of us have to do. We may be better or not, extroverts or introverts.
That's right, and it has payoffs. I can't begin to tell you how many times I've re-accessed somebody that I hadn't seen in a couple of years, just reached out to say hello. How are things going? It's keeping you in the top of mind for whatever kind of work that you do. You're not lost in that whole big database of contacts. So you want to close today with a personal story, didn't you, Lynne?
Oh, well, no, it's interesting because a friend of mine, we met freshman year, orientation. Everybody crowded into the lobby of the big auditorium on campus, and which is and everyone's milling around the lobby, which is, as to me as an introvert, is horrible. And I'm just standing there kind of looking at people, and it's funny because I'm thinking, they all have something in common, but nobody's talking about that. Everyone's going, oh, where are you from? What's your major? And I thought, one thing we have all in common is that we're really scared. We're nervous. We're about to go into college. So I had this wonderful little insight in my head, and I happened to glance over at a woman who's standing near me, and she's looking very thoughtfully, also kind of standing apart. And I figured, what the hell? So I leaned over to her and I shared my observation. She went, yes, that is so true. And we connected immediately, both introverts. And then after the meeting, we ended up walking for 45 minutes and connecting, and we're still very good friends. And I think it's sometimes taking that little risk. That's work for introverts, but which can really pay off.
And we love to be approached as extroverts, that we shouldn't have to do all the work in building a new relationship.
All right, we've talked enough.
Yes, we have, but we had so much fun today.
Well, I do have some questions that have come in, so let me run those by you. The first question we've got comes from Sophie, and you touched on this, but I think she'd like a little bit more on how do you promote yourself without selling or boasting?
I think, again, it's the idea of how you and your mind are most comfortable. There's a lot of times when you have to be genuine and authentic in who you are. If you're genuinely uncomfortable talking about your accomplishments, I can understand that. I can understand how you might not want to do that with certain people. But what I think you might want to think about is practicing with people that you do trust. That would be something like, here's something I'm working on at work. Here's something I'm really proud about. Here's something that I'm passionate about. And begin to tell a story. It's short. It doesn't have to go into a lot of detail. But again, the more that you can be comfortable in talking about your accomplishments, the more you come across as someone who is interesting.
I mean, if I could
Yeah, go ahead. You have we talked about how else.
Yeah, once again, as an introvert, it means I need to do some work beforehand. I need to think, be alone, think about where I want things to go, and hence what things I want to emphasize or bring out. I may even need to write them up ahead of time and practice in my head, and yeah, maybe practice them with a friend. But I need to do some work up ahead of time and take that frame of selling out of the picture. I'm talking about what I've accomplished. I'm proud of what I've accomplished. It's not boasting or selling. It's presenting myself. And it's letting somebody else know the kind of things that I've done.
Okay. So another question, this one's from Satya, and they want to know what's the best way to keep in touch with ex-colleagues without making them think that you're invading their privacy or wasting their time.
Can I?
Yeah.
I think it goes back to what Susan said earlier. It's about exchange of information. If you think you have something valuable, they might have something valuable for you. It can be a light touch. It can be a deeper touch. It depends what's going on in your life. So it could be like Susan says, saying, "Oh wow, I see you're in a new position. What's that like? How did you kind of get there? I've been thinking about that area myself." Or like I said earlier, I'm looking for someone who's a resource in this particular area. Can you tell me a little bit more about what you're doing? So I have a colleague who's interested. There's lots of different ways of making that connection. That once again, taking the frame away that I'm bothering them, or that they're going to see me as needy or as demanding of them. Take that away. You have something to offer. They have something to offer. And most people, especially like social media, they put their stuff up there, and then a lot of the stuff they get back is kind of meaningless. Or people abusing the tool to promote themselves. And if you come at it in a more genuine way, which, by the way, I think introverts are really good at. We parse our words. We think about what we're going to say. And I think we can often come across as serious.
The rule of thumb is if you've tried 3 times and haven't gotten a response, that's probably a good indication that they're either moved on, changed roles, or just genuinely not interested, and just cross them off and move on to the next one.
Yeah.
One last question. This one comes from Byron. And Byron wants to know, what's a great way to make your networking interaction memorable in a positive way?
Okay, I'm going to go first. I think any way that you can be a good listener, if you can show enthusiasm, if you can show who you truly are, you're not posing, you're not trying to be outward or
It's not a pitch.
Yeah, it's just being comfortable in who you really are.
And what you have to bring to the table.
Yeah.
And like I said earlier, come up with those thoughtful questions. Don't ask the same old, same old. I think that's a really strong way of being memorable. And I think introverts are really good at that.
And I think extroverts can be great at anything they put their minds to. So there.
Any other questions, Mark?
No, that's it. Lynne Goldman, Susan Morris, this has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your coming to join us today, and I hope you'll join us again.
We are joining you again.
Well, I knew that. It was a rhetorical question.
No, in a month, we're going to do another Google Hangout, and we're going to focus more on how introverts and extroverts can communicate in the workplace without driving each other crazy.
Well, that's
great title.
And we're looking forward to it. And thanks for
Thanks, Mark, and thanks for the questions.
Thank you.
To everybody else who's out there watching, we appreciate your looking in. As Lynne and Susan said, we'll be having them back in about a month to talk more about the relationship between extroverts and introverts. In the meantime, if you've got more questions for them, or if you've got a topic you'd like to see us cover in a Dice News Hangout, just send an email to editor@dice.com and we'll get back to you. Again, thanks for watching.
Take care. Bye-bye.